Good morning, everyone. My name is Hassan Hasab Al-Nabi. I'm the Dean of the Hale College of Business. It is great to see all of you here today. Thanks for joining us. Can you hear me, guys? And welcome to Business Week. It is very exciting to have Business Week back in person. Please spend the next 2 days taking advantage of the events that we have. Be intellectually curious. Don't be afraid to ask questions of our speakers and employers on campus. I hope that you will find the Business Week events and activities informative, inspiring, and transformational. At this point, I would like to invite our President, Ashish Vadia, to share a few words with us.
Thank you, Hassan, and good morning, everyone. It is indeed, I want to echo Dean Hassan's words to say thank you all for being here, and it is really good to see all of you in person. Despite the circumstances, the challenging pandemic, I'm glad to see everyone is masked and ready. I want to throw in a little pitch here, make sure that if you haven't been vaccinated, go ahead and get it. It is free for all students and everybody else, so that's our surest way to get out of this, and we're seeing some hopeful signs. But again, it is really, really great to see all of you here. This is an exciting set of events, and of course today is a very special treat for all of you. And I'm going to stick around for a little bit to hear these two wonderful gentlemen talk a little bit about building a winning team. So I'm excited about that. I do want to take a moment and thank our friends and supporters from Western and Southern. I don't know if anybody is here from there or not, but if you are, thank you for your support and your sponsorship of this event. This is very important again. And of course, our two guests, in a moment I'll be introducing them. A dear friend now, I can call him even though he is my boss, Chair Andre Ward, as well as, of course, NKU alum Derek Fields, who will be here in just a few minutes to talk about some of this. This is an important occasion as we look at what we've learned from the pandemic. This is an important and timely topic. Building a winning team, in my mind, there is no more important topic that sets high-achieving organizations apart. And that is a team dedicated in purpose, in thought, and in action. In these times, more than any other time, it's a winning team and a culture that will set us apart. And of course, NKU is an organization just like everybody else, and we're striving to do the same thing. On Sunday evening, we have a family sort of chat. I have friends and family in California, and we always get together Sunday nights to kind of do a chat. And the last Sunday of the month is usually game night. And we were sort of squeezing that in between the Packers and the 49ers game on Sunday. Let's not go there. I'm a 49ers fan, so just so you know. And the game was categories. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that game. Yeah, yes, no? Yeah, okay, a few nods, that's good. So you have a letter, and then there are different categories, and you have to kind of pick a word. And the letter was A, and the category, amongst many, was sports terms. And my son, who is a big basketball fan, said assist. And my niece, who is a big tennis fan, said advantage, which I thought was pretty nice. And we had a few others that were less inspiring. But as I reflected on those two words, it occurred to me, going back to, I just thought about this. One of my favorite basketball players was Magic Johnson. Again, some of the folks in the audience will be like, "Oh, who's that?" Well, he retired before most of you were born, so I can figure that out. But I think what I admired most about Magic Johnson was that he made people around him better. He made the team players around him better. And the notion of an assist, and my son will vehemently say the point guard is the most important position in basketball. I don't know, Mr. Fields, whether you agree or not, but you actually are the ones that set the stage for the others to succeed. And I have shared this analogy with a few people before. I feel that the faculty and staff at Northern Kentucky University are some of the best point guards you will see in the business. What they do is make you better. What they do is provide you with the assist. You have to finish the play, though. You have to actually put the ball in the basket and finish the play. That's not what they're going to do. They're going to set it up for you really well to support you and make that. And of course, the word advantage is something that we talk about. What is, and as business students, you all know this, what is your competitive advantage? And I've been quite influenced by the work of Patrick Lencioni, who's written a book called The Advantage, that says organizations are going to be set apart by their health. If you have a functional team that works together, that is accountable, they're going to do some incredible things. So I'm excited to hear what our two speakers are going to say. Let me just give a brief introduction to each of them. Both, I think, have just done incredibly well in their careers, and of course, both happen to be alums. Derek is a 1990 graduate of NKU with a degree in radio, TV, and film. He's a former Norse men's basketball player and in the Athletics Hall of Fame. He has accomplished so much. Today, he is the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Rehrig Pacific Company with 20 years of experience in sales, strategic brand development, driving revenue, increasing market share for leading global and consumer brands. He has worked with the likes of Warner Brothers, Disney, Sara Lee, Kraft Foods, and many others. To his right, and from my side to your left, Andre Ward is the President, Chief Cultural and Transformation Officer and founding principal of the Kraft Foods Corporation, which focuses on human resource management and talent development. He is a 1986 graduate of NKU with a degree also in radio, TV, and film, and serves as the chairman of our Board of Regents. He's an extremely active mentor for many students and young professionals in business and industry, and his presence here is a clear indication of his passion to serve the next generation of leaders. I'm thrilled to have each of them with us today. Without further ado, let me turn it over to our wonderful, inspiring guests here, Andre Ward and Derek Fields. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, President Vaidya. Thank you so much for the kind words. Good morning. Good morning. No. Let's do this again. Good morning. Good morning. I know it's early and I know we have masks on, but we can still be vibrant. We can still be vibrant. Thanks so much to each of you for coming this morning to Business Week and the Hale College of Business. Dean Hassan Nabi, thank you so much for the invitation that you've extended to both Derek and I. I can't tell you what a pleasure this is this morning. It is a very rare privilege for me to sit here on this stage with the gentleman to my left. Mr. Derek Fields, alumnus of NKU Men's Basketball Hall of Fame, Senior Vice President, Marketing and Sales for the Rehrig Pacific Company. Derek has not been on this campus in probably close to 2 decades. Well, no, because he came back for Ken Shields' retirement, so probably a little over 10 years.
Yeah.
A little over 10 years. And he was remarking about how phenomenal the transformation has been. Derek, welcome back to NKU and welcome home.
You know, I was blown away when I was driving in, and I'm sitting there saying to myself, am I on the right campus? And I tell you my age here, you ever think about going back to 1985 when I first arrived here on this campus, and there was an A through F dorm. That's all we had on campus. And there was all of 300, 400 students here on campus. And so when I saw the upgrade, I was asking myself, could I come back and go to school again with all of the upgrades that you guys have? It's phenomenal, and the transformation and evolution of Northern Kentucky, and I'm kind of becoming back more because now what I've seen is just really exciting. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, and hopefully I can shed some light on some of the insights I've had out in the business world over the last, they gave me some credit. It's actually over the last 30 years, but they said 20s, and I'll take the 20. I'll take the 20.
Well, listen, I want to share a little bit about our format this morning. and then also extend you an invitation. This is a conversation. So don't feel as though this is going to be kind of this lecture style process. Derek and I are going to have a conversation. We want you to be a part of that conversation. We'll talk for probably 25 minutes or so, maybe 30 minutes or so. But in that time, it will probably help you formulate some questions for those of you who may have come with some questions already. I see some head nods of people who have already come with some questions. We'll reserve some time toward the end for you to stand up and to share your questions directly with Derek. So, having done this a number of times, what I want to ask you to do is, as you hear us talking about different things, go ahead and jot down for yourself those things that are aha moments for you, that moment of, I didn't know that, or I want to know more about that. That way it'll kind of help you prompt your questions. So, Derek, let's start with this. Tell us a little bit about Rehrig and what you do currently. So we'll start there, and then I'm going to go back in just a moment, but just kind of give us just a short snippet of what is it that you do at Rehrig as a senior vice president and what role you play in the company.
Yeah, believe it or not, Rehrig is a 108-year-old company, and we are a manufacturer of secondary and tertiary recycled products. So I'm sure some people might have a dairy crate sitting in their room somewhere where they've got their books stacked on top of that. We make those. We make bakery trays. So we're in the business of creating value in the global supply chain for our customers. And when I think about my job and what I'm responsible for, there's a whole list of things that I could go into. But I think for me, the first and foremost important thing for me is investing in my people. I think that's the first and foremost thing for me is ensuring that my team has a sense of belonging, that my team has an opportunity to grow and develop and has some idea about a career path that they can go down. I want to make sure that we are providing them the tools, effective tools for training that allow them to do their job well, because if you don't give them the tools, they can't be successful. And I want them to have a sense of belonging, which means giving them an opportunity for their voices to be heard. So investing in people is absolutely part of my job. Obviously, I've got to be able to grow revenue and profitability for the organization. I got to ensure we got the right go-to-market strategies. Are we in the right sectors? Are we driving the right strategic initiatives? Ultimately, we've got a customer relationship, so I want to make sure that we've got great relationships with both our existing customers and our new customers. And then, Andre, the competitiveness in me, I'm always wanting to make sure that I've got the best team to put on the field to ensure that we're going to be successful and that we're going to win.
All right, so that's what you do now. Let's go back, way back. So, high school Derek, Worthington, Ohio, suburb of Columbus. How in the world did you end up at Northern Kentucky University?
Well, it's interesting. I always was involved in sports. I played football, basketball, baseball, but basketball was the sport that I seemed to excel in. And if any of you guys play sports, even if you're being recruited for college, you get the number of letters, you get the number of phone calls, hey, we want you to come here, this is going to be the best 4 years of your life. And it was interesting because the year before, a gentleman by the name of Sean Scott from Columbus, Ohio, had come to NKU. So I had known a little bit about it because Sean and I were really good friends. And then I got the letter and I called Sean and I'm like, hey, Northern Kentucky's recruiting me. He was like, really? He had no idea. And I asked him about what his experience was from a coaching perspective, from Coach Beisel and college life and college experience. And He gave me some really, really good feedback, and I said, okay, I'll see how this goes. Coach Beitzel then picked up the phone. He called. Hey, Derek, I want to come see you. I want to come in and do a home visit. And at the beginning, I kind of had Northern Kentucky by the wayside because I got an offer from Vanderbilt. I got an offer from Miami of Ohio. And I'm thinking, Northern Kentucky? Okay, I'll put them on the wayside. But Coach Beitzel was his authentic self. He was true to himself. He came in to my home with my mom and dad, and he sat down and he said, I'm not going to promise you anything. I'm not going to promise you that you're going to play. I'm not going to promise you that I'm going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. But what I will tell you is that you will come to this university and have get a 4-year degree that will give you an opportunity to go out into the real world and find a job. And so I listened to that, and I said, okay, I'm going to take a visit to the campus. I need to see what I'm going to get myself into. And I got to be honest with you guys, even 30 years ago, I fell in love with the campus. It was almost like brand new. And I believe at the time there might have been 9,000 students. There were maybe 500 again on campus. But I was interested in business communications, radio, television, and film. It had the curriculum that I wanted, and I got excited about that. And I met some of the people on campus and just got a really, really good vibe. And then I'm saying to myself, well, this would be a good opportunity for my parents because they're close. I won't have to go far. I think more importantly, I found out that Northern Kentucky started recruiting 5 or 6 additional people from Ohio. So I had ties with them. And I just kind of felt like it was going to be something special that we were going to have here at NKU, and I wanted to be part of that. And I guess the rest, they would say, is history. And if I had to do it all over again, I would. I'd come right back.
Fantastic, fantastic. So you end up on campus, you accept the letter of offer and invitation, almost like you would a job opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this interview process, mm-hmm. and you're interviewing us, mm-hmm. and we're interviewing you, and we give you a letter of offer, and you have to accept. That's kind of like mm-hmm. a letter of business mm-hmm. opportunity. Mm-hmm. So you come to the campus, and you're here as what I like to call a scholar athlete. Mm-hmm. So you're here primarily with the attraction of playing ball. At that time, I believe, were we Division II at the time?
Mm-hmm. Great Lakes Valley Conference.
Yeah, we were Division II at the time. And you're pursuing your degree in business communications, radio, TV, film. What was campus life like to you during those days? What were you involved in? Was it only class and basketball? Or what did you find yourself involved in that started to really formulate Derek Fields as a leader?
You know, it's a really good question because I think the first thing when you come to any campus and you're new is the unknown, right? And so there wasn't a lot at the beginning for me to really understand what direction, for me that I wanted to go. But I think for me, coming on campus and trying to experience the college life, knowing that I didn't have 1,000 or 2,000 people on campus, I spent most of my time either playing basketball on the week, during the weekdays, during the weekends, studying, also trying to find out the additional activities that were going on campus that I could get involved in so that I could start to build that brand awareness. I think for me, it became personal. You okay?
Yeah, someone is trying to get me. Keep going.
Sorry, Andre, he's important. So for me, Dre, it was a matter of just continuing to build that awareness through, obviously, Alpha Phi Alpha. Created a scene for me to build my student leadership and be able to start to build what I would call my identity. So I think about, when I talk about my identity, when I think about what Northern Kentucky invested in me and what I invested in Northern Kentucky, I invested the fact that I wanted to build my identity, my credibility. And by doing such as making the dean's list the first semester and setting the tone for not only the athlete, but the scholar portion of that. Excelling on the basketball court, whether that was player of the week. I ended up being an All-American here. I set the Great Lakes Valley Conference back at the time to be the player of the year. So I wanted to build my, what we call internal brand here by being and exemplifying the best student that I could be on NKU's campus, building a network, whether that was building a network with my professors, whether that was building a network with other players in other sports in on the university. But for me, it was all about that brand building and giving myself an opportunity to build myself up here on campus and use that as an opportunity to take that out there into the business world. One of the things you guys are going to find, let's just say you don't play sports. You want that opportunity to build up on campus, opportunities that the campus gives you in any activities, any projects, any teams you can get involved on, because the first thing an employer looks at is, what have you done besides go to school for 4 years? What else have you done? Okay, you got a 3.5. Were you active in anything, right? What did you do? How did you build your brand? They're looking for folks in that matter. So take advantage of opportunities to do that, whether that's with your professors. For me, it was professors. For me, it was the sports realm. So I was able to use all of that. And what I believe that the university invested in me was time, right? 4 years, money, financial, obviously, and the opportunity for me to get a 4-year degree and go out and find a job in corporate America.
Well, let's stay there for just a moment. While you're on campus, talk a little bit about this sense of campus community. What did campus community look like? And you keep using this word brand. As a 18, 19-year-old young man, what did you know about brand? What did that mean to you?
I had no clue what brand meant. And the campus community, I would tell you guys, was phenomenal because we only had, like I said, 200 to 300, but most of the folks that were on campus were either men's basketball, women's basketball, men's baseball at the time, and then we had some sprinkly from students who would come from either Ohio or different areas that came to the school. And so we built this little community amongst ourselves, whether that was we'd have a party in A, B, C, or D dorm.
That's now North Commons, by the way.
We didn't have that back then. But we would do that, Andre. We would spend time, we would go to Reds game. We would go to Kings Island. We built this community because it was all that we had at the time. And it didn't matter whether you were black, whether you were white. There was a community that we built, and spending that time together, getting to know one another, getting to know how each other does certain things, right? That was the exciting part of that. So I really enjoyed that piece. And I think that if I look back thinking about what it was now and then, it absolutely helped me engage differently because I had to force myself out of my comfort zone.
We're going to talk about in a minute what happened after graduation, but I want to spend for the purposes of our guests for a moment talking about leadership on campus. We see and hear you now as a senior vice president of a major company. Your leadership did not start when you left NKU. Your leadership, I suppose, actually started while you were here on campus and even before. What were some of the things that contributed to that leadership that is now Derek Fields, the senior vice president, but you had no idea at that time that would be in your future?
You know, it's interesting because I think it starts with, really for me, it was the sports and leading on the basketball court was one. I imagine myself being the visionary in what we could do and how we could do it. I think in addition to that, Dre, once the fraternity had gotten started and I had an opportunity to build upon my brand and leading the fraternity for something that we never had here, that whole retrospect about how I go about building my soft skills, right? Whether that was my work ethic, whether that was my communication style, interpersonal skills, right? Problem solving. I probably back then had no idea what I was doing in terms of the development of leadership, being a mentor in the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and building that mentorship, developing people, right? Using all of those things, motivating and inspiring people. All of those things, you're not even sure when you're in college that you're doing it, but when you get out into the business world, you start to understand, and you take for granted what you had done. And when you're out in the corporate world, you're like, I didn't even realize what I was doing until I got here. Does that make any sense?
It does. And in all transparency, this is not the first time Derek and I have met. I actually met Derek, and I had the pleasure of meeting him when he was a freshman or sophomore on campus at the time. And we have had and have built a lifelong relationship since that time. Talk a little bit more about getting ready to leave NKU. You are on campus, you're involved in the fraternity, you're involved in men's basketball, you're involved in radio, TV, film, those courses, and of course, at that time, before the College of Business, the business department. Where did you envision this would take you?
Honestly, I thought I was going to the NBA. I thought I was going to play. Honestly, I thought I was going to play in the NBA. I had a great career here at Northern Kentucky. I was a 7th round draft pick in the CBA, and my first inkling was I'm going to the league. After a year and a half of that not happening, I scaled back because here's what I thought about. Student, athlete. So I had a fallback because I did come and get 4 years of education. So as I thought about, okay, now how do I think about getting out into the business world? How do I think about what my next job is going to be? The first thing that came to my mind, honestly, Jerry, because I had left NKU, was contacts back at NKU. Networking that I had built, right, the internal branding that I had built back at NKU, I used those resources.
That community.
Absolutely. Use those resources. I used the fraternity resources to figure out what it was next for me. I used my own research and insights to figure out what was going to be next for me. I used my own internal network. And so having to think about all of those things and come to a conclusion of what's the company, where do I want to work? I knew I wanted to work back then for a big name company. There had to be a big brand, had to be a Fortune 500, had to be a name brand company. And at the time, it wasn't about location. It was about what am I going to enjoy doing here? What is the role and the work that I would have to do? And then being able to make a decision on whether or not I'm going to move or have to move.
So you come here from Worthington. You're at the point now of graduation. You are trying to figure out professional athlete, traditional workforce. What does that look like for you? This sounds like a fairy tale story. It almost sounds like you've had no missteps or no misfailings. What went wrong?
When you say what went wrong, do you say what went wrong?
Why aren't you in the NBA? Why aren't you in the CBA?
Well, listen, first and foremost, not everybody makes it in the NBA, right? And so you set a goal, You set objectives, and sometimes those goals and objectives don't come to fruition. But what you have to have is a backup plan. And I go back to student, athlete.
So talk a little bit about, because I happen to know this part of the story, talk a little bit about what happened when you were in the process of thinking about being drafted.
I gotta tell you, man, it was an amazing feat. I had the support of NKU. I had the support of all of my fraternity brothers. I can't even describe the high because I didn't know if it was going to be CBA or NBA, and so having to keep a cool head, having to humble myself a little bit for the excitement was, I think, putting me in better perspective, because I didn't want to come to a point where I thought I was going to make it and be there and it didn't happen. So cooler heads prevailed.
You made a decision upon leaving NKU. 82% of our alums stay in this region. They stay in the Beltway area with their families, relocate here, those who may not be from the area, but 82% of our graduates stay in the region. You were one of those who said, I wanted to explore, and I wanted to explore more. And the shortest way to get to the West Coast, you've been in Cleveland, you've been in Pittsburgh, I think Philly, you've been in Chicago.
Now,
All before getting to where you are now. What made you take that risk?
if you're not taking risks, you're not certain on what that reward is going to be. And I can just tell you from experience, if you get yourself stuck in a rut that you don't want to move, you're limiting your opportunities. Had I not moved in the realm that I did, from leaving school, going to Pittsburgh, going to Philadelphia, going to Cleveland, going to Chicago, now in LA, I could tell you I would not be sitting in this chair today. The opportunities are going to present themselves to you. They may not be in your region, but the opportunities and the success that Northern Kentucky is going to give you are going to present opportunities for you. The question you have to ask yourself is, are you willing to take that risk? It is all dependent upon your goals and your objectives on what you want to do. For me, it was worth the risk, and I'm rewarded by where I sit today.
And so let's now talk about the brands. You said that you were working on building your brand while you were here at NKU. Mm-hmm. You have worked for some of the world's largest known brands. Mm-hmm. Sara Lee, Kraft, Warner Brothers, Disney. How did you leverage an NKU degree against all of these other folks who are working in those major brand companies?
Well, it's a really good question, and I will go back to building credibility in my internal brand and some of the experiences that I had at NKU. One of the things you guys will have to do is establish relationships. You're gonna have to establish relationships in your organization. I was able to do that here at Northern Kentucky. I think the other piece was the unknown. So when I came to Northern Kentucky, there was an unknown, and being able to navigate through the unknown, right, going into that company was huge for me. Adaptability and flexibility. Companies are evolving and changing every year, every 3 years, every 5 years. Look at Facebook, look at Apple, look at Walmart. They're always evolving, right? I think, Dre, also an example of overcoming adversity. You're going to deal with adversity here on campus, whether you're playing sports or not. And how do you overcome that adversity? So some of those experiences that I developed here and was able to overcome helped me. I also think structure, right? Because when I was here, I played basketball, right? I had 12, 15, 18 hours in classes. I was mentoring. I wanted to do other activities. So that also helped me. So a lot of those things that I experienced in building my internal brand here and the things that I was able to capture helped me out into that business world. My work ethic, all of that was helpful.
So the theme for this week is building a winning team. But as a team member, as a contributor, how do you fit in that puzzle? How do you figure out the difference of where you can lead and when it's time to follow?
No, I think that's a good question, and I think it depends on the individual. For me, I always saw myself leading, and I think that started with the competitive nature. If you're an individual and you're a doer, what you call an individual contributor to get things done, I think that's fantastic, right? Because you can still be successful as an individual contributor. Leadership starts a whole nother dynamic, right? Because you've got to change culture, you've got to change the whole dynamic of strategic initiatives and thinking, you've got to balance different stakeholders, right? You become the power in the organization, right? You drive change in the organization, you motivate and you inspire. And so you have to understand where your happy medium is, and my happy medium was leading.
So Derek, what if I say to myself, I'm not there yet. I know I can do the work. I know I'm capable of doing the work. But I don't necessarily see myself leading others. Are there differences between leading other people and leading even when you're not a people leader?
So I do think that there is a difference. So you can lead and do your job effectively and not lead other people. That's a good, what I call individual contributor. So absolutely you can be a leader as an individual contributor and not have to lead
So the
people.
two are not tied together.
They are absolutely not tied together.
As you were thinking about your career, let's talk a little bit about why didn't you stay in your first job until you retired? Why 4 or 5 different locations and 4 or 5 different roles? Why didn't you just take the first job, stay there until you retired, make a great life where you were?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think as you get out and you get into your first job, you're still not sure what it is you're looking for. For me, first things for me that was important was culture. I was looking for, okay, is there an opportunity for advancement in this company? Does the company have fun? Do they treat their employees right? Do people enjoy coming to work? Are there tools that help me be successful? You know, I think other things that I looked at was how innovative companies were. I looked at their product. You know, is it a me too? Is there R&D? What things does the consumer need it? I also looked at different processes, how the company moves internal, how nimble we are getting out to the customer. So people, product, process. Then, and I think today, it's more people, process, and systems.
So you almost went back to how you selected NKU. You went back to, do I fit? You went back to a moment of culture of the institution really makes a difference in your decision making.
Yeah, I think one of the questions you asked me originally about what my job is, at Rehrig Pacific, and I said one of the things that I think is really important is the belonging piece. I think as you go out into the job market and you find a culture of belonging and inclusiveness, you start to drive a really strong workforce because people want to work when their voices are heard or when they feel like they belong. Absolutely.
Okay, all right. And so you were at these other companies. Now, out of the companies that you have been in, I guess you would call these progressive assignments or progressive kind of advances. What was different at Sara Lee versus Kraft versus Warner Brothers versus Disney that allowed you to say, well, I've done well here, now I need to move that somewhere else?
You get to a certain point and ensure that you know what your value is. There is something to be said about your value, and sometimes you won't get to move in the way that you want to move with the company that you work for, and then that's when you have to make the decision on whether or not you want to stay there to evolve. For me, the opportunity was, how do I move myself through the chain if I'm not going to be able to do it here, elsewhere? And I was able to propel myself by moving to different states and taking different jobs. And honestly, comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and it comes back to what you talked about earlier in some of that risk-taking.
I see people writing that down. That's very interesting. You say that being comfortable being uncomfortable. What does that really mean? Well, what was an example of you being uncomfortable?
I would tell you the job that I took today 3 years ago at Rehrig Pacific, I was comfortable being uncomfortable because it was a completely different industry that I've ever been in. I had no understanding about the industry. I was brand new, and I'm saying to myself, what have I just got myself into, right? I'm seriously thinking that. And so that's an example of comfortable being uncomfortable and taking that risk.
You were at Disney.
I know where you're going with this.
This man was working for Disney. One of the few brands in the entire world where just the name alone says who you are. You don't have to explain Disney. You left Disney?
As we spoke about, culture is very important. Your happy medium in culture is very important. And what I experienced at Disney, as much as it's the greatest brand on earth, was the fact that the culture there was very toxic, where 6 months in, people were being let go. Every 6 months, you could expect somebody to be laid off, right? And that didn't feel good. That didn't feel good. I spent 13 years there, but it didn't feel good wondering, am I next? Is my number going to be called? And so that's what I tell you guys about thinking about, am I happy with what I do? Am I happy with how the company moves? You've got to make that decision. You've got to think about what that risk is. And so for me, Dre, forget the brand. And I learned that with experience, because when I first got out of school, that's all I thought about. But now I'm a big fish in a small pond, and I'm so much happier with what I'm doing today because there's a great family culture there, right? I love coming to work and spending time with that family. There's innovation happening at that company, and I get a chance to be part of something special. So I don't have to be at the big brand level to excel, but it took time for me to learn that and experience that.
So we're going to ask you folks to now start formulating your questions. And if you have a question, raise your hand and I will see it. And I know that we have microphones out in the audience that we will be able to get to you. But in the meantime, you are now in charge. Tell us a little bit about Rehrig. You told us the kind of industry that it is. What attracted you there? What was your yes?
So it was a 4-month process, and I know this sounds repetitive, but I honestly tell you, I've never worked at a company where they say that family is important. There's 5 core values at Rehrig Pacific: family, service, growth, entrepreneurship, that's an I, right? And innovation. And when I was talking to the recruiter and he was telling me about this organization, it's a 108-year-old company that has been around for that long, there's a reason that company's been around for 108 years. That company today sits north of $600 million in revenue. And so to me, the exciting thing was the opportunity to go and lead, where I'm basically the second man behind the president to make decisions. At the end of the day, that's my responsibility. So it was the culture and time spent with the company. And I talked about your value and your worth and what you've done and the experience that you gained. I'd be lying to you if I told you that monetary value didn't play a piece. Mm-hmm. You need to take care of your family. You need to take care of you. That's an opportunity. You should do that. You've earned that right at the end of the day. And then, again, the opportunity to go somewhere and do something that hasn't been done before in terms of growing the organization, driving innovation, changing the culture of the sales organization was just magnetic for me. And I spent 4 months and spent time with the owner, and it was a no-brainer after 4 months that that's where I wanted to be.
So let's talk a little bit about Rehrig. 108 years old, manufacturing, new industry. Did I hear you correct? You are the number 2 person in the entire company?
Yeah, so that was, in sitting down talking to the owner, he basically says, I'm hiring you to come run my company. Now, where I come from, the experience that I built, I always talk and make sure that my boss knows what's going on. And I've learned a little bit of the hard way when I have conversations with him that he says, that's your decision. That's your decision. So that opportunity to be the number 2 at a company, a 108-year-old company, was just dynamic. And yes, that's what you heard me say.
And so what is your portfolio like? What are you responsible for? And how many folks are in this Rehrig family?
Yeah, so the company itself is probably about 2,000 employees. We've probably got 1,600 to 1,700 on the front line, manufacturing 7 plants across North America, 1 in Mexico. But me today, I'm responsible for all of sales, all of customer service, all of sales operations, all of category management, and all of sales operations at the end of the day. So 5 different functions. We have 4 additional functions across the organization: NPD, which is new product development, finance, operations, and then we don't have an HR. We have what we call human capital, which are business partners as opposed to an HR team. And so the reason the opportunity came to exist for me and what I was tasked in coming in to do, and the reason I was brought in, because I was from a different industry. So don't limit yourself to thinking about you've been in an industry for 3 years, 5 years, and you've got to stay in that industry. You can move. Companies are looking for people who can do different things. And so originally it was, hey, we're doing okay, but I think we've got some culture challenges in the organization. I said, talk to me about that. And what I found in asking questions were, there's a lot of people working in silos, right? And so I'm all about, we got to collaborate, there's got to be a commitment to the organization. And, I do have empathy, right? But I've had to go in and basically restructure the organization. So I want you to use this example. Think about a GM or a new coach or a new president, for that matter, and he's coming in and he's new. He takes a first year and he takes a look at the organization, he takes a look at the university, he takes a look at the country, and he says, can I win and do the things that I need to do with this team? Mm-hmm. And he starts assessing, and he says, this probably isn't going to happen over here, so you know what? I need to start recruiting. I need to start letting some people go. I need to start bringing in my own team so that I can get the ambition that I'm trying to execute across. And that's really what I've done in the last 24 months to 36 months that I've been there, is changing behavior, changing culture from an accountability perspective. When you run into some of the privately held companies, sometimes the family, as much as we love each other, gets in the way of the accountability piece. So holding people accountable is probably one of the most important things that I drive in the organization.
Your NKU degree did that?
I would say the NKU degree and the experiences that I had on campus absolutely did that. And I would tell you that the more experience you get, the more questions you ask when you're at a company, the better that's going to help you apply yourself if you want to stay or if you want to go.
Let's open this up to some questions. I know by now you folks have heard Derek and I talk significantly now, and we definitely want to hear from you.
Can I say one thing?
You certainly can.
So, again, I was coming in this morning, and I was blown away by what I saw, but I'm almost getting ready to tear up because Jennifer asked me this morning, who are some of your closest friends that haven't been back? And I'm going to try not to cry, but one of my fraternity brothers is sitting in the audience right now by the name of Tracy Davis, and he's sitting over there on the far left. I see you, Sands, and I'd like him to stand up because he can also tell you, and Tracy Davis is another leader. He's a pastor, and he leads a church in Indianapolis, and he's been doing it for the last 20, 25 years, and I'm so proud of him. He's a phenomenal person. He's a phenomenal individual, and I love him. And Tracy, I'd like you to stand and say hello.
What you all don't know, and he is incredibly intuitive, what he doesn't know is that he's not here by accident. And we've been trying to keep this from you with my phone blowing up behind me. And because this room is so bright, he saw him come in and be seated. I was trying to figure out if he recognized him or not.
That was my roommate for 4 years. How am I not going to recognize that brother?
Not only is this his fraternity brother, it's also his basketball team member who drove over from Indianapolis this morning to be here to support him. Relationships at NKU do matter. They do matter. They absolutely do matter. We will hear from him in a moment, but let's hear from you. Let's have some questions. What questions do you have? Yes, this gentleman here in the white shirt. If you would stand up, and they will bring the microphone to you.
Hello, my name is Noah Braden, and you were saying you were number 2 at your company. I was wondering if you had any sort of advice for kind of moving up that ladder, whether it's moving in the company you're already in or job hopping between different organizations.
That's a really great question, and I think it really, again, when I talked about looking for growth and advancement, that's one of the things that I took into consideration when I go to work for an organization, trying to get an understanding of what that looks like. Am I going to have an opportunity for growth and development? Does my manager talk to me about what that career path looks like? Are there tools that they're giving me to do that? And I think if you feel like you get into that position and you've done all of that and it still doesn't work for you, then it may be time to look elsewhere. For me, that's what I was able to do to help propel me to where I am today. And I'm not saying to you guys at all that you can't stay at the same company for the rest of your life. It's unheard of today. I will tell you that it's unheard of. You will work, I think on an average, the statistics show at least 3 or 4 jobs before you come home to where it's comfortable for you, just to give you some insight. Great question.
Someone else, go right ahead and stand up. There's a question in the back here.
Hi, my name is Jocelyn Green, and my leadership started when I was a child, and if it's too personal of a question, you can decline. But I just wanted to know if you had, with your family life or experiences growing up, if you had any specific role models or if there were anything to point you towards to where you wanted to be a leader.
I think that's a fantastic question. I don't mind answering that. I had my leaders who I looked up to and mentor was my mom and dad. I'll be flat out honest with you, and I'll share something with you in transparency. My mother had me when she was 17, and she was just enough time to finish high school, and she went on to own her own beauty shop for over 30 years, right? That was my heart. That was my leader. My father, who I call my father today, was my stepfather, didn't have a high school degree, but went on to be the captain of the Sharon Township Fire Department in Worthington. So I was able to grow up in a 2-parent household. We were actually blessed to live in affluent neighborhoods, but those were my 2 role models growing up. And if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be sitting in this seat today, that's for sure. That's a great question. Thank you for asking it.
Others, questions?
This is normally how it goes.
Well, we've got one over here, and then we've got another question over here. We've got one over here as well.
And I am also happy if you guys don't want to ask questions in front of your peers because you're shy. I'm happy to take questions off to the side as well.
I just had a quick question about applying for positions. A lot of job requirements will be listed on them, and they'll say 3 to 5 years of experience, you need so-and-so. Job relations experiences already. What is your opinion on, you have the skill set needed for the position, but you don't have the, say, 3 to 5 years of experience that they're looking for? Should you apply? Should you wait? What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I apply. Because when you get the opportunity to get in front of that employer and show your authentic self and your skill sets, you're going to have an opportunity for him or her to see you against somebody that does have 3 to 5 years. So don't sit back and say, oh, they're looking for 3 to 5 years of experience. Demonstrate your skill sets in front of that employer and tell them why you should have that job. Does that make any sense? Great question.
There's a question here. Go right ahead, stand up.
Hi. You mentioned how you had to leave Disney because of its culture and environment. How do you approach a conversation like that when you're leaving?
You know, it's interesting because Disney is always wanting folks to be authentic, and if they really want to hear the truth, you give them the truth, and that's what was good for me. I could leave knowing I was honest with myself and I was honest with that organization. Now, what they do with that information is completely up to them. Does that make any sense? Great question.
In the remaining few minutes that we have, we are in the process now of looking at expanding our curriculum. Mm-hmm. And we're expanding our curriculum and we have a tremendous supply chain offering. Tremendous supply chain offering. We're expanding our curriculum to also look at engineering degrees and also marketing majors. I think right now, Dean, it is going to be in sales. I think it's going to be a minor initially, and then it'll be full degree offering in the future. Thinking about where you are now in the role as an employer, how should NKU and how should we be positioning ourselves to attract your attention?
This is my alma mater. I'm your plug. I'm your conduit. I'm here. I get a chance to see this great university after 20 years, what everybody is trying to do. I'm going to be trying to pull as many NKU students to Rehrig that I can. So you've got that commitment from me, whether that be internships, whether that be us getting here on campus, spending some time with the students, whether that be us getting information more about what the university has to offer. I'm excited to be here today and sit in front of the students, knowing where I was 30 some odd years ago, to be able to give back. Absolutely.
So this is an interesting time for us at the university. We're a young university. We're 54 years old now as an institution, 53, 54 years old as an institution. That's relatively young in comparison. Rehrig is 108 years old. Can you share with the audience today how you position yourself as an NKU alum against anyone in the marketplace in terms of your credentials, in terms of your experience, in terms of your value in the workforce?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question, and Dre, I'll be transparent. It started here. This is where it started for me, right? And going back to building your internal brand on the university and taking advantage of what the university has to offer. I think the second part of that is that comfortable being uncomfortable perspective. You're going to see over time, you're going to have to compete. I had to compete on the basketball court every day against Tracy. You're going to have to compete every day against people that you work with, right? And that's part of life. So don't be afraid that you have to compete. I think that you've got to, number one, there's a confidence factor in going in and talking about the value of who you are and what you bring. And you have to know and get comfortable about what that is. For me, it was that comfort level when I got into a company and understood about how a company moves and seeing how people who I competed against operated. I was much better. I saw that I was much better. So you'll be able to see that, Dre, I think, with experience. So I wouldn't let the fact that it is a Stanford, it is a University of Michigan, it is an Ohio State, I would go up against any of them any day of the week coming from NKU because they gave me all of the skills and components to experience what I went out in the life to have to deal with.
One of the last questions, the structure of your company is a little bit unique. Most of us think of companies as either privately owned or publicly traded. What is the structure of Rehrig, and how do you fit into that process?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we are public. We're not publicly owned. We are privately held, but we are an ESOP company, which means you are an owner in the organization. So the owner and president of the company says, I'm going to take 20% of the valuation of this company and I'm going to give that to the employees who work here. And so we now become part of that. And so when you're working, you're not just working for a company, you're working as part shareholder and owner in that company.
And how does that make you do your job differently, knowing that you own a piece of this?
Well, I'm a driver in general, but any time when it comes to monetary value and I have an opportunity to better the organization from a financial perspective, I'm hungry. I'm going to drive. So it's exciting. It really is.
Any final thoughts to our audience today?
I'd like to thank you guys for just taking the time to come out today. You could be at home, you could be in class, you could be anywhere else. I am happy to answer questions, but I thank you for your attention. I thank you for your questions, and I thank you just for being here today. I appreciate it. And the last thing that I will tell you from an NKU perspective is you can do anything you put your mind to at any time. Don't let it stop you. Don't let anybody stop you.
Dean, just before you come up, I said I'd give him an opportunity. I'm going to ask Mr. Tracy Davis if he would come and join us here on the stage. One of the things that you folks don't know, they have not seen each other in probably 15 years. This is a reunion that's happening real time. Built on this campus. Because these gentlemen competed together in basketball, lived together in the dorms, studied together. Mr. Davis is also, for those who are veterans in the audience, he is also U.S. military, separated, and served as one of the first lieutenants commissioned in the ROTC program here at Northern Kentucky University and was deployed.
You want to say a few words?
One minute, and then we'll give it to the dean.
Is that on? Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for this, but thank you for the opportunity. It's good to see everyone out. I was blown away when I pulled up on campus. I think it's been probably 15 years since I've been back. I was listening to everything that everyone was asking, and for time's sake, the one thing that I can actually say that I know about Derek, and I've watched his life, we came in as young kids together, 17, 18-year-old teenagers. Both of us was in the place of unknown. But the one thing that I can actually say that Derek Fields, that I know about him, is all the things he said was true. Everything that he said, I watched, I experienced. But the one thing that he did not mention was that Derek was the hardest working person I have ever been around. He was not going to let you outwork him. So all the skills was there. He was not the most talented basketball player when he first showed up on campus. He probably was, I would say, probably the one freshman that when we came in, he was probably the least talented recruited freshman coming in. We all came in, 6, 7 of us together. We all had, names behind us, had careers behind us in high school. He was probably at the lowest of all of us. But the one thing that he did is he went back that summer, and I'll never forget, 1986, went back home, worked his behind off, came back, and he was a total different person. So he talked about his brand, but he also didn't talk about how he rebranded himself as a person. So when he came back, he was faster, stronger, wiser, and like I said, every single time we stepped on the court, we knew if Derek was going to do anything, he was going to outwork you. So if I could just give that as an example for his life, for your life, you might not be the most talented, you might not be the most gifted, but the one thing you can always do is you can outwork the next person next to you.
Thank you.
Angela, Derek, thanks for this amazing session. It has been such a pleasure to hear from you today. Derek, thanks for traveling all the way from California to be with us today. I'm sure that you inspired many of us with your story. Please don't forget that we still have a complete set of sessions for you to attend today and tomorrow. Business Week has just started. I hope that you enjoyed this session. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the day.